So the most interesting lecture that I went to was in the historical geography section, which I actually started up with a friend, Chris McKinney. And the talk was by, I have here all the details. It was by Lawson Stone from Asbury Theological Seminary. And Asbury Theological is, I believe, in Kentucky. And Lawson was able to bring in his knowledge of horses into his interpretation, because
His knowledge of what?
Horses.
Like university courses?
No, Horse.
Oh, horses.
Nay.
Horses like the Dothraki and the Huns. Okay.
Right. So if you allow me, I know not everyone here is going to be watching, but if you'll allow me to just share my screen for a moment here.
Yeah.
What I have for you here is two verses in Joshua 11. In the 11th chapter of Joshua, God tells Joshua that Joshua, and the Israelites are going to conquer the king and the confederation of Hatzor, which in English you might want to pronounce as Hatzor or something like that.
Hazor, maybe.
Hazor, but in Hebrew it's going to be Hatzor.
Yeah.
And there's this really fascinating passage that comes up that Lawson spoke about. And it's right here, this word ta'aker. So in the Hebrew word is ta'aker, I have it highlighted. And God says, Etsusehem ta'aker, their horses, you are going to aker. What does it mean to aker? And all the translations either have to hamstring or to hew, which I don't know if I'm pronouncing the hew right, but what that means is to hamstring. That's in the King James. But everyone after the King James has to hamstring, to hamstring, to hamstring. And what that means is that you take the horse, you chop it at the Achilles tendon, and then it can no longer run. Okay? And so basically what Lawson asked was, first of all, why would you do this? Why would you hamstring a horse? It's just going to die. A horse that can't move is going to die. Why are you going to have thousands of horse dying? That's the first question. The second question he asks is like, wait, aren't horses valuable? And he's right. If you actually look at different biblical texts, the value of a horse is considered more than the value of a man. So like a horse would be very valuable. What's going on? And then finally, isn't it just mean and cruel to like kill these animals by chopping off their tendons? If you wanted to kill the horse, you should just chop it at its neck. Be kind, don't kill these horses all at once. Mm-hmm. So those are the questions. Okay. So so Lawson, what his answer is that everyone's misunderstanding the word aker. It doesn't mean to hamstring, as it actually comes from the root of akara, a barren woman, and akar, a barren man. What you're doing is you're making the horse barren. You are castrating the horse. So all of a sudden now you're not killing the horse, you're castrating the male horses. And the idea being is, he says he's not 100% sure, but his idea being is that the castrated horses are going to be a lot less wild and valuable to a warrior. You're basically defunding or decapacitating the military horse. That's basically what you're doing. You're making this horse from a weapon into maybe to help you plow your field. And then all of a sudden, you're not killing the horses. You're not being cruel to the animal excessively. And you're making sense of this root akar. It means by itself, it means to uproot, like you uproot a root, right. Uprooting a root. You're barren person. You're uprooted. You're castrated. So that was the talk that I thought was the most interesting and self-contained. And hopefully you and Nelson and the viewers could benefit from that one.
So now I'm really interested to see how this is interpreted. Because let's see. Yeah, so interesting. So here I'm looking at the there's a website dot.ac.il. Here, I'll share my screen. So here there's this website Shvilei Tanakh, and it has different interpretations, different classical rabbinical commentators. And here Malbim, he says, the Israel will not rely on them in their wars. Ukvar nitztava melech bal yirbelo susim. And the king has already been commanded not to multiply horses. So the implication here is he understands te'aker as to neuter, to make it so they can't reproduce.
Or to hamstring, and then they die.
No, but why bal yirbelo susim? You shouldn't multiply horses.
Right. So, I mean, it's still not clear. I don't know if anybody's ever suggested this, but like, it's not clear to me.
It seems to me that's Malbim's understanding, but I could be wrong. You're right. It's not that clear. But he should at least cite that as a parallel,
Sure.
or as a possible. Maybe somebody said it before. But no, it is interesting. Why would they always translate it as a hamstring when wait, let's see here. No, so most of the interpreters don't say anything about it. But here's where we should look. So we have this other verse in Genesis, and you're right. It always means barren, or almost always means barren. Genesis 49:6, and when pleased they maim oxen. It's talking about ubiltzanom ikrusho, and here it's referring to this is isn't this Shimon and Levi, I believe, is the context here, and it's talking about how they Shimon and Levi, how they attack the city of Shechem, and then maybe there's a play on words with Shechem is the son of Hamor, which is donkey, and here it's Sho, another domesticated animal that I'm not really sure. But let's see how they interpret Genesis 49:6, because that's going to be, because nobody, like Rashi doesn't bother to interpret or to say anything, to comment on Joshua 11:6, because it's obvious to him what it means. I guess it's not so obvious to us, though, right? Let's see, 49:6. Did I do this right? Let's go Rashi. Okay. Yosef Shnikra Sho. They wanted to uproot Joseph, who's called the ox.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says akru, and then he has a word here in French.
Hamstring.
Lichrot gidei hashuk.
Gidei hashuk is right.
To cut the tendons of the shoulder of the what do you call that? You call it the shoulder on an ox.
Right, but these tendons that you're walking with.
Right. No. So you're right. So Rashi interpreted it the way you're saying the standard interpretation in English is. Then he gives a parallel, Joshua 11:9. You shall hamstring their horses. So you're right. That's how at least Rashi interpreted it.
So for me, the thing I like the most about this talk was that this was a person who actually works with horses, and I'm sure many of your listeners say, "Hey, I work with horses all the time." Not all of the listeners, but like personally, me, the most I've ever had with a horse is like when you go to the dude ranch and you get your 1 hour, circuit, and it was great. I had a great time with the horse, but like I don't really know anything about horses, and so for somebody who raises a horse says there's no point in hamstringing, you're just going to kill it. This should be something else, and then the lexicography lines up really nice. So
I wonder if there's a way to hurt the horse where it just can't be used in war, but it still could be used to plow a field. I don't know the first thing about horses.
Right. Well, remember, for plowing, think about why do people castrate the bulls and turn them into oxen?
So they're much more
right. They're much more docile.
Yeah.
And so it's the same kind of idea here that's going on in Joshua.
So I was in Nepal, in 2014, I want to say, and I saw these people plowing with a water buffalo, and I said, "Isn't that a wild animal?" They said, "Yeah, it would attack and kill you if you got too close to it, but it doesn't attack its owners."
Wow.
And this had to do with them being Hindus, and so they wouldn't use. I guess they wouldn't use like an ox, but it's like there's this loophole. Right, where the water buffalo is not considered a cow, so you're allowed to eat the flesh and plow with it, because even though to me and you it's a cow, but to them it's like a wild cow. I totally
understand the process of the loophole. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Yeah. So one thing to note about horses in the ancient world, I don't know if you mentioned this or if it's even important. So I asked this question when I studied archaeology for my undergrad. Why did they always have 2 horses or 4 horses or 6 horses in a chariot? and we think of knights and the cavalry as a single horse. Why do you need 2 horses? And the answer I was given is that the horses weren't strong enough. So by the time you get to the Middle Ages, they've been breeding horses in Central Asia and in Eastern Europe for centuries, for millennia. The Huns and the Mongols, they eventually breed these giant horses that can carry a knight. But in the time of Joshua, in the time of even the Romans, generally the horses couldn't carry a soldier; they were too small, and so you needed 2 of them, right? And then the classical Roman thing is the quadriga, the 4-horse chariot. And I think in if I remember correctly, it's 2 horses in ancient Egypt. And then just a really interesting little tidbit: why the size of our cars and our roads are based on the Roman roads, and the size of the Roman road is based on the 2-horse chariot, or a 2-horse really wagon, right, cart. And so and then our modern trains are based on the same size. So the modern train is based on the size of 2 horses.
Wow.
So yeah, it's crazy that today in the 21st century we still talk about horsepower, and we still have roads that each lane is based on the size of 2 horses. So, and I guess it's 2 people as well, but specifically the Roman roads had to be 2 horses wide because the single horse generally couldn't pull a cart. But I guess other than that, I know nothing about horses.